My name is Benjamin Angwin, and there is a claim, an untruth, repeated far too often now, that the unthinking take as settled fact, that Israel is some kind of British colonial project, not a homeland born of exile and return, of effort and struggle, but a settler outpost planted by an empire the way London planted flags in Kenya and Rhodesia and brought in British settlers. And I'm setting it straight. You hear it from Marxist academics, you hear it from woke activists, and oddly, you hear it from Celtic nationalists in Wales and Scotland, who I would have expected better of, to know what a nation is, and to defend our military allies of the Western civilization. Take Plaid Cymru councillor and Senedd candidate Elin Hywel. On October 7, 2024, she reposted a comment describing the Hamas attack on Israel as, quote, resistance to colonialism, casting brutal sadistic violence as the answer, with Israel written into the role of colonizer in their own land. Weeks later, at a vigil for Gaza, she went for the same framing again, telling the crowd that Wales understood colonialism too, because, in her words, Wales was England's first colony. The implication is vulgar. If Wales was colonized, and Israel is supposedly a colony, then the violence done to innocent Israeli children on October 7th was not only good, but praised as an act of resistance and could be done to the English too. She was not alone. Look north to Scotland. Scottish Green Party policy, passed at conference and now sitting in the party's own rulebook, formally recognizes what it calls the settler colonial nature of the Zionist project, and names in the same breath Britain's supposed role in building it. As if Jews have no agency of their own. Others have noted a strand of Scottish nationalist thought that draws a straight line from the Scot under Westminster rule, which the majority of Scots voted for in 2014, and the Palestinian under, in quotes, occupation, whose majority in each generation chooses to start a war unprovoked with Israel, who must defend itself. As if the only difference between Scots and Palestinians is that one wears a kilt and the other wears a keffiyeh. It's laughable. It is the story of useful idiots taking on the label of oppressed to support a jihadi death cult. This is where the Struma comes in, a Romanian ship which was denied entry into the Holy Land. Because here's the test. A colonial power takes resources from a colony back to a motherland. It ships its settlers in, wanting the effort to succeed because these are its own people. Out of 16 million Jews worldwide, only 2% of Jews have British roots of any kind. Compare this to Australia, with around 70% having British roots. Compare this to America, in which British ideas are the foundation of the United States. The idea Israel is a British colony is utterly ridiculous. Britain spent the years of the Holocaust and shortly after, turning refugee ships away from the shore of the very land it is accused of colonizing. Jews drowned because the gate was shut, not because it was opened for them. From 1939, when Jews needed it most, Britain denied them entry, which I will get to shortly. Blocking Jews' entry and having them die in the water. These are not the footprints of a colonial project. No case makes that clearer than the sinking of the Struma. Let's talk about that story. December 1941. Constanza, on Romania's Black Sea coast. A ship left port carrying 782 Jews, fleeing General Ion Antonescu's government. Romania was Hitler's ally now, and that is a complicated story. Let me know if you want a video on that. For the moment, Romanian Jews were living under a rising tide of decrees, seizures, and even slaughter. The Yashi pogrom months earlier had killed over 10,000, well, more than that. It killed 13,000 Jews. 13,000 Jews were killed throughout the city. For those still alive in Romania, getting out was the only choice, and where could they go with Nazis on the verge of taking Moscow, ruling everything from there to the Atlantic Ocean, having also invaded Greece to the south early that year? Germans were on three sides of them. There was only one place open to them left by boat. Haifa was now a busy port, rebuilding the Jewish homeland. Tel Aviv was founded in 1909 by a Russian Jew who wanted to build the first city in which revived Hebrew was the everyday language. I know where I would go in 1941. Tel Aviv. No, actually, it's that way. That way. Anyway, a ship was found, the Struma, barely fit to sail, an old iron-hulled yacht, built in 1861, refitted into a cattle ship, with a second-hand diesel engine that had already shown it was not even seaworthy, 75 years old and 45 meters long. Onto the Struma were packed 782 men, women, and children, along with a small Bulgarian crew, axis aligned. Their destination? Haifa in British Mandatory Palestine. The port city was just over half Jewish by this point. Safety in numbers, right? Even before leaving Constanza, the engine failed before she made it out of the harbor. But if your choice is a 75-year-old rickety ship that might not even make it to Israel, or go back and ask the Nazis if they had a change of heart, which one would you try? They kept going, and the ship was slow. It failed days later in the Black Sea. A tugboat had to drag her past the rest of the way to Constantinople. The native Greek name for Istanbul is Constantinople. And there she sat in the Bosphorus Strait, 10 weeks, anchored in quarantine, going nowhere, whilst the passengers rationed food smuggled aboard by a Jewish merchant in the city, as sickness spread and the children shivered through a Black Sea winter on a ship never built to hold them. But why was this ship not going anywhere? The answer is simple as it is British. Turkey would let the refugees journey on and land only if Britain would take them onward to Mandate Palestine. Turkey was neutral, remember, and they were kind of between Russia and Germany. They wanted to remain neutral in this war. They didn't know who was going to win. Britain said no. Its weak excuse was the 1939 White Paper, which I must explain briefly now. Colonial Secretary Malcolm MacDonald drafted its terms, issued in May 1939, in response to what in Hebrew is called Hameirot of 1936 to 1939, the Arab disturbances, which was a period of mass criminal disorder over Jewish land ownership. The White Paper capped Jewish immigration to British Mandatory Palestine at 75,000 over the next 5 years, after which any further immigration would need Arab consent, which is another way of saying no more Jews. It also froze Jewish land purchases across much of the country. Crucially, it paved the way for a Palestinian state with an Arab majority by design within 10 years, marginalizing the Jewish people. So how can Israel be a British colonial project if the British colonial secretary was in the process of setting up an Arab state by denying Jews entry. But let's continue with the story. The white paper had capped Jewish immigration hard, and the Mandate authorities held that line even as rumors of the Nazi atrocities spread. By the week, things grew darker. Those on board the Struma tried contacting the Jewish agency in Constantinople. Then the JDC, the American Joint Distribution Committee, offered to pay the cost of housing and the needs to the Turkish and British authorities. Word of this had reached the Secretary of State for the colonies, Lord Moyne. According to historian Bernard Wasserstein, this man, Lord Moyne, personally intervened and tipped the decision against saving the Struma. It went on for weeks, and yet nothing moved. The passengers hung banners over the ship's rail, in English and in Hebrew, reading in large letters, "Save us," so the people walking along shore could read them. No one helped. The British state went silent and turned its back on people fleeing the regime it was at war with. On the 23rd of February 1942, Turkish police boarded the Struma, cut her anchor, and had her towed back out through the Bosphorus into the Black Sea. Now get this. The engine was still dead. The passengers still aboard without basic medicine, and they set her adrift 10 miles off the Turkish coast. A stroke of bad luck made things far worse. To avoid both Axis and Soviet fire, they had set sail under the flag of Panama, a neutral state. Many ships do this today between Ukraine and Russia to avoid the war, neutral shipping. But during their stay in the Bosphorus, Panama had declared war on the Axis powers. Panama's biggest market is the United States, so it joined on the side of the United States in the war. The captain and crew were from Bulgaria, Axis allies, and could no longer legally command an enemy ship under Panama, so the ship floated and floated. That same night, at around 2 a.m., a torpedo tore through her hull and went boom. She sunk fast. Those trapped below deck never got out. Others clung to wreckage in freezing water for hours, waiting for a rescue that did not come in time. When a Turkish boat reached the wreckage, all but one person aboard had died of drowning or cold. 781 refugees and 10 crew lost their lives. Just one survivor, a 19-year-old named David Stolier, lived by clinging to a floating cabin door through the night and by the coat his father had given him before he left Bucharest. It is the single largest civilian loss of life on the Black Sea in the whole of the Second World War. Now, for decades, no one knew who fired the torpedo. That's why I didn't say immediately. Some assumed a stray mine. It was not until the 1960s that a German historian found the truth, later confirmed from Soviet naval records. The torpedo came from a Soviet submarine, SHCH-213. Under orders to sink any neutral or enemy shipping entering the Black Sea, the Struma was mistaken for just that, enemy cargo rather than innocent refugees. So yes, in the most pressing literal sense, a Soviet torpedo took those lives. But a torpedo cannot explain why a defenseless ship of Jewish refugees was sitting alone and adrift in open water in the first place, engine dead, with nowhere left to go. That is what British policy did. Turkey towed her out only because Britain would not let her passengers land. Turkey had no legal right to enter British waters. strip away the white paper, and the Struma would have reached Haifa in December 1941, not the bottom of the Black Sea in February. The anger that followed tells you about how Jews under the Mandate saw the British. After this, posters went up across Mandate Palestine accusing the Mandate's High Commissioner of the deaths. 2.5 years later in Cairo, Egypt, members of the Jewish paramilitary group Lehi shot dead Lord Moyne, the British minister who said no, an act against the power that had, in their eyes, sentenced Struma's passengers to drown. You do not shoot the patron who is building your state for you. You shoot the jailer who is standing in its door. Now we return to the claim that we opened with. Israel, we are told, is a British colonial creation, an imperial outpost of wicked Westernism, planted and protected by the evil empire. So that claim, next to 781 dead, next to 10 weeks of stalled messages whilst children froze in a harbour, next to a British minister gunned down by the very people this theory says Britain was sponsoring, a colonial patron opens the door for its settlers. Britain again and again bolted it shut on board the Struma, and before that, in the years of tightening quotas, and after it again with the Exodus in 1947. There's a film on that if you want to know about it. The passengers of the Struma were not the colonists of an empire. They were refugees an empire refused. And it cost every one of them but one his or her life. That is why the settler colonial framing collapses under its own stupidity of extremist left-wing ideology. Such framing is not a neutral academic model, but old anti-Jewish suspicion in a renewed language of anti-Westernism, this time draped in the vocabulary of anti-imperialism to make evil look like social justice. When a Welsh councillor at a Gaza vigil uses the fact that Wales was England's first colony as a weapon against Jews by letting the audience think Welsh conquest in the 13th century is equivalent to the rebirth of Israel after the Holocaust, or when a party conference in Scotland votes through the phrases settler colonial and Zionist project as if the word Israel itself should be erased. They are laundering an old accusation with new grammar, and the drowned refugees of the Struma prove them wrong at the cost of their lives. Thank you very much for watching. Diolch yn fawr iawn am wylio. If you would like to contribute to the channel, please do so, or leave a like and let me know below what you thought about the video. We'll see you next time.